crazy, right? 1 minute crypto markets are just kind of doing the thing, and then boom, something just explodes.
Totally.
And you being, someone who likes to stay ahead of the curve, I bet you've noticed API3 making some serious moves lately.
It's been hard to miss, right?
Right. And there's so much info flying around these days that I think we're all kind of trying to figure out what to focus on.
You're not wrong about that.
So today we're doing a deep dive into API3.
Ticker symbol API3.
For anyone who wants to look it up.
Right.
It's a decentralized Oracle solution.
Ooh, yeah, big words.
It is, which is why we're here to break it all down.
Exactly.
And it's been seeing some crazy price action, and we've got a whole bunch of sources here to help us make sense of it all.
Lay it on me.
We've got some articles from Binance Square.
Okay.
Price data straight from Binance.
Nice.
And even some news reports that break down this recent surge.
Sounds like we're well equipped.
I think so.
Yeah.
And our goal today really is to just understand API3, why it's suddenly the talk of the town, and what all these sources tell us about, where it might be going.
What it's all about.
Yeah, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
So first things first, API3, decentralized Oracle solution.
Catchy.
What does that even mean? Like, can we just,
Plain English.
Yeah, for the regular person.
Okay, so think of it like this, right?
Yeah.
Smart contracts on the blockchain,
Yeah.
they need info from the real world to actually work.
Okay.
Like prices, weather data, all that stuff that's not on the blockchain.
Off-chain data.
Exactly. And API3's whole deal is to provide that information, but in a secure and reliable way.
Okay, so that's what sets API3 apart is
The how.
the how.
Exactly.
How do they do it? So they basically go straight to the source.
Okay.
Instead of getting someone else to fetch the data, they connect smart contracts directly to the original data providers, like the first-party APIs.
To cut out the middleman.
No more middleman. You got it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right. So then how does this direct connection even work? What's the magic behind it?
The magic, well, they call it Airnode.
Airnode.
Yeah, it's their tech, and basically gives these first-party API providers a way to easily and securely put their data right onto the blockchain.
Oh, wow.
Without needing those traditional Oracle nodes as go-betweens.
Okay, so it's all about creating a more trustworthy system then.
Yeah.
Like where you can actually see where the data is coming from.
That's the idea. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
So by going straight to the source, they're trying to make things super transparent and trustworthy for smart contracts.
Makes sense.
Right. So you can trace back the info, see exactly where it came from, less chance of someone messing with it or mistakes happening along the way.
Got it.
Less room for shady business.
Yeah, for sure. So where would we actually see API3 in action then? Like what kinds of applications are using it?
Oh man, all over the place really.
Okay.
Any smart contract that needs real world data could use it.
Okay.
Think like DeFi platforms needing up-to-date prices.
Okay.
Or insurance protocols that use weather data to trigger payouts.
Okay.
Or even supply chain management systems tracking shipments.
Oh, wow.
Like the need for accurate off-chain data is everywhere in the blockchain world.
Yeah, so many possibilities.
Sure.
Tons. And you mentioned DAO governance earlier.
I did.
What's that all about? Why is that important?
DAO, that's Decentralized Autonomous Organization.
Okay.
So for API3, it basically means that anyone holding their API3 token gets to vote on proposals and have a say in how the project develops.
Oh, that's cool. So it's community driven.
Yeah, exactly. The community gets to shape the future of API3.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So that gives us a good understanding of what API3 is and what they're trying to do.
Solid foundation.
Right. So now let's get into the exciting stuff.
Ooh, the market stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all of our sources are pointing to some pretty big price jumps lately.
Some serious action going on.
Yeah. So let's break down those numbers a bit.
Right, let's do it.
Everleia on Binance Square reported a 39.75% increase, bringing the price to around $0.85 when measured against Bitcoin.
Okay.
They also mentioned that the 24-hour high and lows were pretty wild, like 0.0000017000718 Bitcoin.
Big swings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said the trading volume was over 1 million API3 tokens in that same 24-hour period.
That's a lot of action.
It is. And that's just one source, right?
Right.
Other sources had slightly different numbers, which I guess makes sense because,
Crypto moves fast.
right, it changes so quickly.
Every second.
Yeah, so Crypto Farmer, also on Binance Square, reported a current price of $1.35.
Higher.
Yeah, with an even bigger 24-hour increase.
Almost 57%, they said.
Yeah, almost 57%, which is huge. And they also highlighted a 24-hour high of $1.38 and a low of $0.84, with like a massive surge in trading volume.
Everyone wants a piece.
Seems like it. And looking at Binance's price page myself, I'm seeing it kind of fluctuate a bit, around like $1.18 to $1.20.
Yeah.
With 24-hour changes around that 39% mark, which lines up with what Everlea was saying.
Yeah.
They also mentioned a market cap of over $100 million USD. Big money. Right. And a really active 24-hour trading volume in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow.
It's a lot of activity. And it seems like all the sources are agreeing that the circulating supply is about 86.42 million tokens.
Okay, so the numbers are pretty consistent there.
Yeah, and then Terra Wallet threw in their 2 cents, saying they saw increases between 51% and 65%.
In just one day?
Yeah, in the last 24 hours, depending on the source they were looking at.
Makes sense.
And they said trading volume went up by something crazy like 2043%, according to some data.
That's not a typo.
Yeah.
43%?
That's wild.
That's insane.
And finally, 99 Bitcoins pointed out a 36% surge that happened specifically on March 17th.
So a lot of these big jumps are recent.
Yeah, it seems like things really heated up in the last few days.
Definitely a lot of momentum.
Right. So, I mean, obviously the exact numbers are a bit different depending on where you look.
Yeah, that's crypto for you.
Yeah, but the overall picture is pretty clear, right? Like,
big upward trend.
Yeah.
API3 is on the move.
Lots of activity.
And the question is why?
Exactly why is this happening?
$1 million question.
Right. Well, luckily our sources have some ideas.
Let's dig in.
Yeah. So first, let's look at the technical analysis side of things.
All right.
Everlea mentioned something called the Relative Strength Index.
RSI.
RSI at 64, and the parabolic SAR indicator, suggesting an uptrend, all pointing to bullish potential.
Bullish, meaning
Price going up.
Price going up. Yeah.
So what does that actually tell us? Like, in plain terms, what are these indicators saying?
Okay. So RSI, it basically measures the strength of price movements.
Okay.
Above 50 generally means things are heating up.
Okay.
More buying momentum. And 64, that's definitely leaning bullish.
Okay.
And then the parabolic SAR, it's a bit more complex, but basically when it's below the price, like Everlea said, it can be a sign that an uptrend is starting.
So basically, from a technical perspective, it looks like there are a lot of people buying.
A lot of buying pressure, yeah.
Interesting.
But hold on.
Yeah.
Terra Wallet mentioned that a high RSI could also mean the asset is becoming overbought. Overbought?
Yeah, like it's gone up so fast, it might be due for a correction.
Oh, so that's like a warning sign then.
It can be. Yeah, it's saying, hey, short-term momentum looks strong, but be careful because this upward movement might not last.
Interesting. So it's like mixed signals then.
It is a little bit.
Okay. And then to make things even more confusing, Binance's own price prediction page has some conflicting analysis.
Across different time frames. Yeah. They're looking at different time frames.
Okay, so what are they saying?
So on the short-term 4-hour chart, their moving averages suggest things are bullish.
Okay.
But then when they look at the 50-day and 200-day moving averages on that same chart, it actually points towards a bearish outlook.
So it's saying up and down at the same time.
Yeah, basically it highlights that depending on how far out you're looking, the analysis can change.
So which one is right?
Well, it depends on your perspective.
Okay.
If you're thinking short term, the 4-hour chart might be your guide. But if you're looking long term, those longer term moving averages might be more relevant. Okay, so it's not a simple answer.
Not at all.
Okay, so the technical indicators are giving us some hints.
Some clues.
But it's not like a clear-cut buy signal.
Not exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to news and actual developments then.
All right.
Because both Terra Wallet and 99 Bitcoins mentioned this thing called the OEV network.
Ooh, yeah, that's an interesting one.
OEV, what is that?
It stands for Oracle Extractable Value, which is a type of MEV, maximal extractable value.
Right.
Have you heard of MEV?
I've heard of it, but I don't fully understand it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a complex topic, but basically it's about profiting from the way transactions are ordered or included or excluded in a blockchain block.
Okay, yeah.
And API3 has a unique way of handling this.
Okay.
Instead of the oracles themselves trying to extract this value, they've created this OEV network, which is basically a transparent auction process.
Okay.
So anyone can participate.
Okay, so what's the benefit of doing it that way?
Well, according to 99 Bitcoins, a big chunk of the money from these OEV auctions, like 80%, goes back to the decentralized applications.
Okay.
The dApps that are using API3's data feeds as OEV rewards.
Oh, so they get rewarded for using API3.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And this is a big deal because it creates a potential revenue stream for these dApps.
Okay.
And it makes switching from other Oracle solutions like Chainlink way more appealing.
Because they can make money.
Yeah, it's built-in monetization.
That's pretty smart.
It's a really innovative model.
Yeah, so it sounds like this OEV network is a big differentiator for API3.
A game changer.
Yeah, for sure. What about actual partnerships then? Like, is anyone actually using API3?
Yeah, 99 Bitcoins talked about Moonwell's decision to switch to API3.
Oh, wow.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Moonwell is a well-known DeFi protocol,
Okay.
and they decided to move all their markets from Chainlink to API3.
Wow, so they completely switched over.
Yeah, which says a lot about API3's credibility.
Yeah, and 99 Bitcoins also said that it's more cost effective.
Right, so not only is it reliable,
Yeah,
but it's also cheaper.
that makes sense.
So yeah, it's a big win for API3, and it could be a sign of things to come.
Yeah, like maybe other DeFi projects will start switching over too.
Potentially.
Interesting. And Terra Wallet mentioned that there's a lot of positive sentiment around API3 right now.
Yeah, people are hyped.
Lots of buzz on social media. How much of an impact can that have on the price?
Oh, social media can be huge in crypto, especially for short-term price movements. Like when everyone's talking about something, it creates this fear of missing out.
FOMO.
Exactly. And that can drive the price up even more.
Okay.
But the thing is, sentiment can change really quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
So while it's definitely contributing to the excitement right now, it's not always a reliable indicator of long-term value.
Right. So take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
So looking ahead then, what do our sources say about where API3 might be going?
Well, Be Crypto Farmer laid out a few reasons why they think API3 could keep growing. Like the fact that more and more people need secure and decentralized data.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they've got strong partnerships, and their Airnode technology is gaining traction.
Okay.
Plus, their DAO governance means the community is really involved in the project.
Right.
So those are all good signs.
Yeah, and I think Binance even had some price predictions from their users.
They did.
Yeah.
Based on what users were saying, they predicted a 5% increase by tomorrow.
Wow.
And a longer-term projection of around $1.51 by 2030.
Okay, so pretty optimistic.
Yeah, but of course we got to remember these are just predictions.
Right.
Especially in crypto.
Yeah.
Things can change so fast.
Yeah. All our sources emphasize that,
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
right, this is a volatile market
Very volatile.
and anything can happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we wrap up,
Yeah.
let's quickly recap some of the key things we learned about API3.
Okay, good idea.
Like, what were those core strengths that Be Crypto Farmer mentioned?
All right, so they highlighted the decentralized APIs, or dAPIs.
Which is how they get that direct data flow from the original sources.
Yeah, no middleman.
No middleman.
And then there's that cool Airnode technology.
The magic behind it all.
Yeah, that makes the whole thing work.
Yeah.
And the DAO governance that lets the community have a say.
The power to the people.
Yeah,
And of course, their focus on security and transparency.
right, because that's super important in this space.
Absolutely.
So that's what makes API3 stand out.
For sure.
Okay. And what else did we learn about the fundamentals of API3?
Well, Binance gave us some background on the founders,
Okay.
Barak Ben-Lidre and Heike Vantinen.
Okay.
They started the project back in 2019.
Oh, wow. So it's been around for a few years.
Yeah.
And we saw that the circulating supply is around 86 million API3 tokens.
Consistent across all our sources.
Yeah. So what about the token itself? Like, what can you actually do with it?
So according to Binance, the API3 token is used for a few things.
Okay.
First is how you pay for data requests on the API3 network.
And then it gives you voting rights in the DAO.
Okay.
So you can participate in governance,
Right.
and you can also use it to provide liquidity on decentralized exchanges,
Okay.
which is kind of like being a market maker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but here's an interesting thing. They also mentioned that the API providers who use Airnode can actually choose to get paid in regular fiat currency.
Oh, really?
Yeah, through the DAO.
Interesting. So they don't have to deal with crypto if they don't want to.
Exactly. It makes it more accessible for traditional businesses.
That's pretty cool. And API3 isn't just limited to one blockchain, right?
Nope. Binance said it's a blockchain agnostic.
Which means...
It can work with pretty much any decentralized ecosystem that needs real-world data.
Oh, wow. So it's very versatile.
Yeah.
Very adept.
And the fact that they get data directly from the providers is a big deal. Right.
Huge differentiator.
Yeah.
Because it cuts out those middlemen.
Yeah.
It makes the data more transparent and less likely to be tampered with.
Right, which is what they're all about. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it sets them apart from other Oracle projects that rely on third parties.
So, to sum it all up for our listeners,
Yeah, let's bring it home.
it seems like API3's approach to providing decentralized data with their focus on those first-party APIs.
Straight to the source.
Yeah, and their fancy Airnode technology is really starting to take off.
Gaining traction.
Yeah, the recent price surge and the fact that more and more projects like Moonwell are using them.
Real world adoption.
Yeah, it all points to growing confidence in their model.
People are taking notice.
They are, and as we saw today, the different sources we looked at gave us a really well-rounded view of this whole situation.
From every angle.
Yeah, from the technical analysis to market sentiment to, all those fundamental advantages that API3 brings to the table.
It's a fascinating case study.
It is, and it leads us to a final thought for you, our listener.
All right, hit us with it.
Given everything we've learned about API3
Yeah.
and the fact that the need for reliable decentralized data is only going to grow,
It's the future.
how much of an impact do you think these first-party oracles are going to have on Web3 and the adoption of blockchain technology in general? Like, imagine a world where all data is coming directly from the source.
More manipulation.
Yeah, and think about what that could mean for things like decentralized finance.
A whole new way of doing things.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about,
Food for thought.
for sure.
Yeah.